Right now, in dealership showrooms from Parramatta to Perth, something quietly extraordinary is happening. $80,000 family SUVs, the ones with the panoramic sunroofs and the heated massaging seats, and the names like Prado and Land Cruiser and Everest are sitting on forecourts for 4, 5, sometimes 6 months without moving. The Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, the vehicle Australians were begging for just 18 months ago, the one with 18-month waitlists, the one where dealers were charging above the sticker price and people were paying it. That vehicle is now down 45% in sales year on year. 45%. That is not a blip. That is not a bad quarter. That is a market telling an industry something it desperately does not want to hear. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly what that something is, because once you understand what is actually happening right now, you will never look at an $80,000 SUV the same way again. For the better part of 2 decades, the large family SUV was the defining vehicle of Australian middle-class aspiration, and it made perfect sense. Australia has vast distances, unpredictable roads, and a genuine outdoor culture that demands real capability. The Prado, the Land Cruiser 200 series, the Patrol, the Everest, these were not just cars. They were a statement. They were freedom. The implicit promise that on any given Friday afternoon, you could hook up the caravan, load the family, and disappear into the country for 10 days without a single worry. And the manufacturers knew exactly how to sell that promise. From roughly 2015 onwards, the marketing became almost mythological. Advertising showed them fording rivers and scaling red dirt tracks under golden afternoon light, even though most were living out their days doing school pickups in the eastern suburbs and reverse parking in Bunnings' car. The vehicles got bigger, the feature lists got longer, the price tags climbed past $60,000, then $70,000, then crept steadily toward $100,000 for fully loaded models, and Australians kept buying them. The wait lists weren't just for Prados. Ford Everests, Land Cruiser 70 series, Isuzu MUXs. Post-COVID supply chain chaos meant showrooms were empty and buyers were desperate, handing over deposits 18 months in advance. Dealers had all the power. The buyer was just grateful to be allowed to give someone $85,000 for a vehicle they had never test-driven. Then, somewhere in 2024, the music started to slow, and by 2026, it has stopped almost entirely. This is not one problem. This is 3 separate crises, arriving at almost exactly the same moment. The first is the one you already feel in your wallet. Right now, 28.2% of Australian mortgage holders, more than 1.47 million households, are at risk of mortgage stress. Annual inflation hit 4.6% in March 2026, its highest since September 2023. Only 14% of median income households can now afford the median home price. Read that again, 14%. When housing costs alone are consuming 40 or 50% of your pre-tax income, when electricity bills have spiked over 25% as government rebates ended, when groceries cost what they cost, and petrol is where it is. The conversation about putting $85,000 into a second depreciating asset changes fundamentally. And here is the specific trap that burned so many Australian families who did sign the paperwork during the boom years. They financed these vehicles at near-historic interest rate lows. They locked in long terms, 5 years, 6 years, sometimes 7, to keep the monthly repayments manageable. Then, rates climbed. Their mortgage repayments climbed. The cost of everything climbed. And that $800 a month car repayment, which felt fine in 2022, now feels like a slow bleed with no end in sight. Worse, a Prado that changed hands above RRP in 2024 might now be worth significantly less than the outstanding loan balance. You cannot sell it at a profit. You cannot even sell it at break-even. You are stuck. And every month you keep it costs you money on every front simultaneously. But that is only the first crisis. The second is mechanical, and if you own one of these vehicles, you need to hear this carefully. Toyota has recalled over 13,000 Prado SUVs from the 2024 and 2025 model years for a software fault in the instrument cluster, one where critical warning lights for oil pressure, coolant temperature, and other safety systems may silently fail to appear at startup. And separately, owners of the older diesel Prados are reporting EGR failures, DPF clogging, and injector problems on vehicles that have barely seen 80,000 kilometers. The engineering inside these vehicles has been compromised, not by accident, by design. Global emissions regulations forced manufacturers to bolt complex systems onto diesel engines never designed to carry them. The EGR exhaust gas recirculation reroutes hot, soot-filled exhaust back into the clean intake. Over time, that soot mixes with crankcase oil vapor and forms a thick, tar-like sludge that slowly suffocates the intake manifold. Power drops, efficiency drops, and eventually you pay someone several $1,000s to ultrasonically clean what looks like wet concrete out of your engine. The DPF is the other silent killer. A ceramic honeycomb that traps soot particles when it fills, the engine dumps raw diesel into the exhaust to incinerate the buildup at over 600 degrees. Clever in principle. Catastrophic if your driving involves short trips and school runs, because the exhaust never gets hot enough to complete the burn. The filter clogs. Limp mode. Mechanics report these failures from as early as 60,000 kilometers. Repair bill. Anywhere from $1,500 for a straightforward replacement up to $8,000 for a full OEM job on the wrong vehicle. And then there are the sensors. Millimeter wave radar behind the grille, ultrasonic sensors in the bumpers, high-definition cameras behind the windscreen calibrated to fractions of a degree. The moment a roue hits the front end at 80 kilometers an hour, something that happens to Australian drivers constantly, you are not just bending metal. You are looking at a repair and recalibration bill that can run into the thousands for sensors and cameras alone, on top of the bodywork. Repair costs on ADAS-equipped vehicles are running well above what a similar impact would have cost a decade ago, and premiums have risen accordingly. The owners who paid $85,000 convinced they were buying a serious vehicle are now finding out what that money actually bought them. But here is the third crisis, and this is the one almost nobody saw coming. In February 2026, something happened that had not occurred in 28 years. China overtook Japan as Australia's single largest source of new vehicles. The country that, in 2015, sold fewer cars here annually than a single Toyota Corolla sold in a month, is now the dominant supplier. And they are not selling one or two models. BYD, Chery, Geely, GWM, Zeekr, Omoda, JAC, Deepal. In 2026 alone, several new Chinese nameplates entered or expanded in the large SUV segment, arriving with features that make Japanese and European equivalents look embarrassingly dated for prices starting $15,000 to $25,000 lower. The BYD Celion 8 PHEV, the Chery Tiggo 9, the JAC J8. These are not cheap-feeling vehicles. They are large, well-appointed family SUVs with plug-in hybrid fuel economies that make a traditional diesel look like it's drinking through a straw. BYD is now Australia's second best-selling car brand, up 124% year-on-year. Toyota number one for 23 consecutive years is down over 20%. Mitsubishi, Subaru, Nissan, all down. Brands that built generations of loyalty are watching their market share evaporate to an entire ecosystem of alternatives Australians suddenly have access to. And the Zeekr 7X, a premium mid-sized Chinese electric SUV from $57,900, is being positioned by the brand to do exactly what it's done in China: pull buyers straight out of BMWs and Mercedes-Benzes. A Chinese electric SUV going after premium European buyers in Australia in 2026. That would have sounded like science fiction 5 years ago. So, dealerships that were laughing at their own waitlists in 2024 are now sitting on months of unsold premium SUV inventory, paying floor plan interest every single day. Those vehicles do not move. That is why you are seeing $8,000 discounts on Hyundai EVs. That is why Prado dealers, who were charging premiums, are now openly negotiating. The leverage has completely reversed. It is, for the first time in years, a buyer's market in a segment that was a seller's dream. And the buyers who genuinely need capable, reliable, long-distance family transport are increasingly walking away from the $80,000 price bracket altogether. They are heading online, searching for pre-2015 Land Cruiser 200 series wagons, hunting for well-maintained 150 series Prados from the right build years. They are looking for mechanical honesty over marketing mythology. The 200 series Land Cruiser, discontinued in 2021, remains one of the most sought-after touring wagons in the country. Despite its age, owners routinely report 300,000 and 400,000 kilometer service lives with standard maintenance. Its 4.5-liter twin-turbo V8 diesel was not designed to meet 2024 European emissions targets. It was designed to run forever. If you are in the market right now, here is what the data actually says. The Chinese alternatives deserve serious attention. BYD and GWM have been here long enough for real service histories, and the pricing gap against Japanese equivalents is hard to ignore. If you want a Japanese nameplate new, this is one of the best negotiating environments in years. Dealers need to move stock, and they know it. And if you are going used, the 150 series Prado sweet spot sits in the 2017 to 2020 build, years later enough for the full safety tech suite and the refined 2.8-liter engine that replaced the older 3.0-liter motor with its known injector and piston issues. Verify DPF and EGR history before you sign anything. Here's where we land. The collapse of the $80,000 large SUV market is the logical consequence of three forces that were always going to collide: a cost of living crisis that made discretionary spending impossible to justify, a mechanical reality gap between what these vehicles cost and what they reliably deliver, and a wave of Chinese competition that has permanently redrawn the price-to-value equation.